YouTube vinyl community, David Byrne fans, random people on the internet. My name is Giggens, and we're here today to talk about David Byrne's most recent album as of filming this video, American Utopia, released through Non-Such Records in 2018. This album is a multimedia project, if you will. It's, currently as I'm filming this, obviously a record. It just had a really successful 121 shows on Broadway, up in New York. Spike Lee will be doing a movie for this soon. And then in September or October of this year, there's a book planned for release with illustrations and all kinds of cool stuff. So it's a multimedia project, which works out really well because David Byrne's such a creative guy. And his last few records, the one he did with St. Vincent, and then some of his solo stuff, about 15 years ago at this point now. Super creative, talented individual. So, and at this late in the game, he's still able to make a record that's fun, catchy, very moving, and just a very overall interesting album to listen to. This one in particular, the first time I listened to this, I had like zero interest in it. For some reason, it didn't capture my imagination at all. And when it was over, I was kind of like, did I miss something? Like, what? Why are people raving about this thing? Then I put it on again, like a month later. I gave myself some time to like really remove myself from it. And instantly I was like, what was I talking about the first time? I absolutely love this record. I ended up playing it way more after that, a whole bunch of times through. And it really does show David Byrne continuing to grow as a songwriter, grow as a performer, grow with the group of musicians he's playing with, and continue to push the envelope for what a pop track can be and what you would include in that lyrically or thematically. With that said, this was also his first top 10 solo album either ever or in a very long time. This hit number 3 in the Billboard 200, which is just fantastic. But anyways, very, very cool album. There really isn't a bad song on this thing. And the cool thing about this is that the whole overall theme of the record is to, especially for people living in North America, is to look at what's happening in this country and kind of just, generalize it or just assess what's happening while going through the daily motions of your normal everyday life, and how that juxtaposition of things that are made in the government, how they affect you, how you go about trying to maintain just a normalcy of being a human being, but also living with these things that seem to be out of your control, in a political way. At least that's some of the movement that I got from this anyway. Some of it, I'm sure, is definitely, this whole album's open for interpretation, and I think that's what's cool about it, is that you kind of make it your own. It's not meant to be one thing, because America is made up of many, many different things, which is what's great. So that's what's cool about this album. Everyone can find their own voice with this record. So yeah, the first song, I Dance Like This, is really cool, because you got this beautiful, warm, sort of loving piano ballad-esque feel for the verses, but then the chorus jumps in, and it's this super robotic, metallic, cold, chorus that really nicely augments that beautiful, warm piano. So it's already, like I said, I used the word juxtaposition already, but it's true, because here you got the hot and cold, the warm, the love, the lack of comfort, total comfort, all wrapped in one song musically. But David's voice on this track is just so confident, so assured of himself, but also a little bit world-weary. You can tell this guy's lived some life. He's seen these things happen. He's been reading about the government, reading about politics, reading about normal life, being a human being. All of that gets wrapped up into one nice little package here. And I like that the build-ups lead itself to the chorus of being a total 180-degree change. Because sometimes things feel that dispossessed. Is that the word? Disparate? Opposite ends? You know what I'm talking about. Gasoline and Dirty Sheets. I really like the bass on this one. I wanted to use the word sporadic at first, but it's really not. It's got its own timing signature to it, but it just kind of pops up and bubbles where it wants to. But David's voice on this is super smooth. Really nice, cool delivery on this thing. And the storytelling to me on this one is kind of like what I talked about earlier, where you're living in a world of capitalism, but also trying to maintain your own human element to your daily life, even though your daily life is affected by capitalism directly. Um, Again, this is all completely open to interpretation. So if you feel different about every song on this thing than I do, that's what's great. So we can talk about this. Um, but for this song for me, it was really about feeling the financial strain, trying to find happiness, but all done in a very catchy song with a couple of really good hooks. To show that David's writing chops are still just as vibrant as they ever was. He hasn't lost that knack at all. He could write a hook all day long. Then you get Every Day is a Miracle, which, speaking of hooks, the chorus on this thing is fantastic. I got a very, aquatic feel with this song. That was the first word that came to mind when I heard this track, was it felt aquatic to me. It just felt like it was of the ocean. And it's kind of a unique take of a track because a lot of it feels like it's from the point of view of animals watching humans, whereas, the things that humans, quote-unquote, need or experience, animals don't, and they get through life just fine. And that hasn't changed since day one with animals on this planet. So, interesting kind of setup there. The guitar strumming on this one and the production on this one's kind of expansive, which I really like the atmosphere this track builds. Speaking of animals, Dog's Mind is the fourth track on here, and this is more of viewing the world from the animal's point of view. And how a dog could be so much happier, almost because it doesn't have the burdens of what being a human under a I would say capitalist regime, under just the modern workings of the modern world everywhere, let alone America. But a dog can be very happy because its life knows to eat and sleep, and ignorance is bliss. So if a dog doesn't know about what's happening politically, the dog's probably going to be a lot happier. That might be what this track is about. Am I missing something here? I feel like there might be more to this track that I'm totally not getting, but please tell me if there's something else to it. This is that. This song's really, really cool. It's I really like how it's a song basically about a song, but I like the sound effects, the chopping and gurgling that happen throughout this track. Big, wide, open production on the percussion. And I love the piano on this one. And David's voice is just wonderful on this track the whole way through. The harpsichord, I think, is a good touch. So really good dynamics on this one. Good textures to blend together, especially when you're writing about a song. So pretty cool. Side 2 opens with It's Not Dark Up Here, which is a very, very cool song. It's a very Talking Heads song to me. It's got this big vibe on the choruses that go, hey! It's definitely got that kind of... I don't want to use the cartoony word, but it's got this characteristically David Byrne vocalism that I just really, really enjoy. It's got all kinds of beeps and boops in the background. The bass is fantastic. The drums are awesome. The fun and funky vocal delivery all the way through. It's just an ear-catching track. I like the guitar chords on here a lot too. There's a couple of I use the word toy to describe some of these chords because they don't sound... they sound a little bit more sly or something. It's a very unique kind of combination of chords together, but it's kind of an unexpected track because the album itself is, to this point anyway, a little bit more on the chill side, more sing-songy, in a good way. But hearing this track kind of opens it up to be like, okay, so here's the funkier elements coming in, and then you get Bullet, which is a very interesting track. Just a fascinating description of a bullet entering human flesh and then exiting as well. In a typical David Byrne fashion, the way he describes things and breaks them down, mentioning how, there's food in the stomach or what the heart might feel like. A very, kind of step-by-step, moment-by-moment read-through of what this could feel like as this was happening. It's a very eerie kind of song. The synth beats on here are definitely ear-catching in their eeriness, and the chords kind of tug at your heart here and there. And it's interesting to hear David sing really high notes too, almost falsetto in moments, which is very, very cool. For me, this song speaks to what's happening in this country with the gun problem that we have, where they're just everywhere. All these mass shootings that we constantly have in this country are horrible. So maybe that song has something to do with it. Then you got Doing the Right Thing. I love the guitar picking on this one. The reverb, I think, is really cool on David's voice. And the string section is really nice, too. Very nice, kind of lush orchestration on this track. So that kind of separates as well. So this deep in the album, you're getting some changes here. But I like the sparseness on the verses. So when you get to that orchestration, nice balance there. Very dancey chorus as well too. I love that. Then the last two tracks on here, this track in particular, Everybody's Coming to My House. This was like the single when this album came out, and it's such a good song. I mean, damn, this is a good song. Super clean production, but it's dancey. It is high energy, fast paced, full of hooks. Perfectly David Byrne. And it's full of those classic Byrne vocalisms, which I just really, really enjoy. The chorus is such a hook, and it's got all the elements that make it an essential classic in his catalog, let alone with Talking Heads, but just as a David Byrne written composition, it's absolutely fantastic. He just always nails it. It's unreal. The frantic pace of the track doesn't let up. It doesn't let itself catch its own breath. And there's some fantastic lines on this one, like, we're only tourists in this life, but the view is nice. Crazy good line there. Yeah, this track blows my mind. It's a knockout performance on this one. If there's one song you hear from this album, let it be that one, because it's a fantastic track. And where are we? The last one is called Here. This track for me, I mean, the idea of here and place is kind of like what I feel like this song puts it as a mental thing where physically you can be somewhere, but mentally you can also be somewhere else. And so when you have your idea of here, it might be more of a grounding mechanism to kind of establish a home base for yourself. If you're feeling isolated or removed or confused or comfortable, the idea of here or home or place can be just as much as a mind game to you as it can be a physical thing. So nailing down your focus, nailing down your here is pretty important in a climate that constantly changes. So yeah, very interesting track on this one. I like the slide guitars against the strings. There's some great harmonies on this one too. And a very fitting way to end the album, kind of figuring out your place in this crazy world. So really dig that. A couple months ago, he was on SNL as the musical guest, and that was the first time he had been there in like 31 years. I think since 1989, when I think his first actual solo album under just his name came out at that time. But yeah, here's the back cover. So the back is cool. It basically explains just like, this is open to interpretation. Like, take these songs for what they are, put them against your life or your friends or your family, kind of figure out how they fit with what's going on. I'll show you what's on the inside here too, because you get a couple of things besides the record, which is nice. Here we are. So I kept the sticker that came from the front of the record. It just says that you get a download code. So then you get the actual download code, which is a little mini picture of the album there, and a nice little booklet here. Some fantastic artwork. Love that. So cool. And on the back, you've got a message from David and the track listing and who plays on it. I forgot to mention completely on this thing that most of this was done with Brian Eno. So they're a classic duo here. Let's see if I can fold this up correctly. There we go. All right, and the record itself is cool. Standard black vinyl, but on the A side, you got, I can't really see the drawing, but it basically looks like, I think it is him actually. Let me see if I can hold that up. Yeah, I can be able to see it too well, but you got white on one side and black on the other. And a nice sleeve with the inner lining there on the paper there. So, I really, really enjoy this album. Like I said at the beginning of this video, when I first heard it, I was totally missing something. I was missing the point, missing the whole fun of this thing. It just didn't click. And then the more I played it, it just instantly became something I was like, yeah, this is a really important album. And, this late in David's career, he's still making music that means something and that will last for a very long time. This won't sound dated. I really don't think it will, because the messages on here are messages that we'll always have. We'll always have questions about who we are, what we do, what our place is in the world, and how we're supposed to do our normal human thing, but also work with that element of, people are making rules and we can't change certain things, but we want to change things. How do we live in that climate? So, a fascinating record, and I would love to go see him this fall. So they're doing another tour at the end of 2020. I think in the same place they were last time, up there in New York. So like to get up there and check it out at some point. If you've never seen David live, he's fantastic. And these days for his shows, he has everybody mobile. The drummers, the keyboard players, obviously the guitars and bass, but the horn section, they're all mobile. They'll walk around the stage. It's fantastic. When I saw him with St. Vincent a long time ago, whatever tour that was, it was 2012 or 13 when they toured together. 14, something like that. But they had a brass section with them, and the brass section walked around. They weren't stuck in front of their microphones. The whole thing moved. It was very fluid. Awesome. And they kind of used that towards this show as well. So that's it. David Byrne, American Utopia, easily an 8 out of 10 for me on this thing. It's absolutely fantastic. I like that it's on the shorter side and it doesn't get like bloated. It's very concentrated, and the messages are direct, and the songs are very digestible, but there's a lot to them, and there's a lot of layers to kind of dig into. So it bears repeated listenings in a very fun way. So that's it. My name is Giggens. This is David Byrne's American Utopia, out now on Non-Such Records. Catch him on tour, coming up soon. And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.